I think I made it pretty obvious in my roughly quarterly videos about cover songs that I'm a big advocate for covers to do their own thing, like changing the genre, instrumentation, tempo, structure. Even if the cover's bad, at least it tried something instead of sounding like a karaoke version of the original with a new singer. But one thing that usually stays the same between the original and covers is the time signature. For those who don't know or pretend to know what a time signature is, first off, music theory disclaimer, it's a music notation that says how many beats are in a measure and which note value to count as the beat. Take 4/4 for example. This is the time at least 75% of all music is in. The top number represents how many beats to count in a measure, and the bottom indicates the note value. So a song in 4/4 would have 4 beats per measure, and you'd be counting each measure with quarter notes. For example, both You Really Got Me by the Kinks and Van Halen are in 4/4, and even if you don't fully understand time signatures, just listening to music and counting along gives you a pretty good idea of how these work.
You really got me going. You got me so I don't know. You really got me now. You got me so I get some bad night.
Replacing the time signature of a song is like replacing a skeleton. You're not just changing the structure with how many beats are in each measure, but also the feel of the song too. And even though it sounds cliche, when it comes to music, everything is about feel. So let's check out some covers and different time signatures and how changing one number can recontextualize a song. Only rule, I'm not looking at ones that are in 4/4 and the covers in 4/8. Like, yeah, that's technically different, but they're still the same amount of beats per measure. You're just counting with eighth notes instead of quarter notes. Wow, you're faster than the original. Oh my god, that's so different. Let's start with one I mentioned at the end of the first covers video. No Vacation's version of Waltzing Back by the Cranberries. As the name implies, the original is a waltz, meaning there's 3 beats per measure, or it's in 3/4 as the kids say. The song's a great example of the feel of 3/4. Because it emphasizes the first beat of each measure, it creates this dancey, spirally feel that makes it so dramatic. No Vacation changes the song to 4/4, and it's also a great example of this time signature's feel. Now we got 4 beats per measure with the emphasis on the root and third note. It loses the danciness of the original and becomes a lot more driving and steady. You can still dance to it if you want, but instead of waltzing, you're doing a gentle sway while disassociating from everybody at a party. For a while, I used to prefer No Vacation's cover to the original. Hell, I think I said it was my favorite cover ever at some time. But after listening back to both of them, I like them equally as much now. Their time signatures invoke 2 completely different feelings. If it weren't for the lyrics and the name, they wouldn't be the same song. Which I think that's considered some type of like false advertisement that No Vacation still calls it Waltzing Back, despite their version not being a waltz. That's the power of time signatures. You'll be hearing from my lawyers. Next is an inverse of this one, with a little help from my friends. The original Beatles version is in 4/4. It's also pretty driving, and I love how the chords always sound like they're descending.
How do I feel by the end of the day? Are you sad?
Joe Cocker's cover changes it to 3/4 to fit with the bluesy soul instrumental. This is a cover I'd argue is almost as big, if not bigger, than the original. Joe played it at the original Woodstock in '69. It became one of the festival's biggest anthems. In fact, another thing this song changes is the first line of the verse. Instead of it being, "What would you think if I sang out of tune?" now it's, "What would you do if I sang out of tune?" Which objectively sounds so much better. Ringo Starr sings that line anytime he's played this song live over the past like 5 decades. I know I said I'm not that into blues, but I made the exception last video with I Come From the Waters by Toadies, so I'm gonna do the same here. There's exceptions to everything in music, to be honest. I used to say country sucks, but that was because I didn't go out of my way to find any good country. There's great music in genres you don't like, and shit music in genres you do, and this cover is definitely in the former. It's so explosive and jammy, and they got Jimmy Page on guitar too.
I promised myself I'd get back.
I feel I weirdly talk about the Beatles a lot, despite not being into them that much. In fact, half of the time I'm recommending covers of their songs more than their own music. Maybe when those MCUS biopics come out in a couple years, I'll go through a phase. Next is another 3/4 to 4/4. Only Love Can Break Your Heart. Yeah, just a heads up, most of these entries are gonna be that or 4/4 to 3/4. People are scared of odd time signatures, what can I say? The original is by Neil Young, and he's one of those artists I've always meant to do a deep dive for, but never got around to it. Also didn't help I saw a Neil Young tribute band a few months ago, and not only was it the most 5 out of 10 experience ever, the band definitely got into a fight or something before, because there was this lingering awkward tension through the entire set. Like the band wasn't looking at each other, the singer didn't say anything between songs, and the show was barely over an hour. But I checked out Only Love and liked it a lot actually. Like I said, the song is also in 3/4, but I also see it as kind of an inverse to Waltzing Back 2. Even though they're in the same time signature, Only Love also accents the third beat of the measure and not just the first. So instead of being kind of floaty like Waltzing Back, Only Love sounds like it's tripping over itself. And then you got Saint Etienne's cover. They're a pop trio from Britain, in case you didn't know. This version's in 4/4, and it completely changes the track to this dancey house rendition that's pretty big and echoey. Fun fact about this song, they recorded it in their producer's bedroom in only 2 hours, and it got them a record deal, their first single, and their first big hit. It's a really cool interpretation. I never would have guessed it was a Neil Young song if I heard it first. You'll see this more as the video goes on, but time signatures don't adhere to just one style or feel. You know, not every song in 3 is gonna feel waltzy, and not every song in 4 is gonna feel steady. And to show you what I mean, let's shake it up for this next one and look at a song in 7/4, Solsbury Hill. I feel a lot of people are irrationally scared of this time signature because it's odd and unorthodox. But the more you familiarize yourself with it, the more you realize, oh, this is actually the coolest thing ever. Tons of great songs are in 7. Possum Kingdom by Toadies, Money by Pink Floyd, Below the House by Wombo, and of course Solsbury Hill by Peter Gabriel. This is such a soothing and relaxing song, you don't even realize it's in 7/4 until you count along to it. Whereas that's another thing I've heard trips people up, knowing how to stay on beat with an odd time signature. In 7's case, a good rule of thumb I was taught is to divide it into 2 measures of 4 and 3. It gives this feeling of always jumping ahead because you're skipping that last beat on the second measure. It definitely takes a sec to get used to, but Solsbury Hill is a great starting point for understanding how it works. Sadly, not everyone's as open-minded about odd time signatures as me, because this song got covered by English synth-pop duo Erasure, and they changed it to 4/4. And I'm not trying to be pretentious, but taking the song out of the odd time signature kind of ruins it. Like when you hear the verses in this cover, it sounds so off with the extra beat, you can still subconsciously hear it in 7. And it just pisses you off thinking about what you're missing out on. Now, to Erasure's credit, there is a tiny section of 7/4 at the end of the choruses, which, ironically, that same spot is the only time the original isn't in 7. Instead, it's got 2 measures of 4 there, so that's kinda clever, I guess. Besides that, this cover just feels wrong. The odd time signature is so integral to the song's identity, and to get rid of it, that's like killing an endangered animal. I know I'm supposed to respect this cover for doing its own thing and recontextualizing the song in a way, but there's only so many songs that use funky time signatures like this. And if you feel so inclined to cover it, at least keep it weird, you know? Better to be weird than boring, that's all I gotta say. Alright, next is Fly Me to the Moon. It took me till making this video to learn Frank Sinatra's version is actually a cover. I don't know how much that's public knowledge or not, but yeah, it's an old jazz arrangement from the 50s by Bart Howard. But there's a couple versions that came out before Frank's that are in 3/4 instead of 4/4. Kay Ballard's was the first commercially released version of the song in 1954. It's that kind of slow, jazzy orchestra music that sounds like your grandparents' house. There was also Eddie Calvert's version from that year too. His version uses the trumpet instead of singing, and I like this one a lot too. It sounds like waiting room music in a movie. Frank Sinatra's version came out in 1964. It was rearranged by Quincy Jones to be in 4/4. So now instead of being a waltz like the other versions, this one's more of a swing because of that extra beat. It's a great song, not gonna deny, but you hear it in like every movie trailer ever, so I don't know what else to say about it. I'm curious if anyone still arranges this song in the original 3/4 time. I looked up some newer renditions and all of them have it in 4/4 like Frank's version. That's no doubt the most famous version of the song, so I wouldn't be shocked if everyone forgot it used to be a waltz. To any jazz fans in the audience, let me know if I'm wrong. Let's stay on the subject of moons. Next is The Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen. This is another band I know I should get into more, but last June I went on a super awkward date with someone who listened to them a bunch, so it's still kind of a weird association, but this song's really good. The original is in 4/4, and there's a lot of things I love about the instrumentation. The drum brushes, holding out the guitar chords, and when the bass shreds during the bridge. This song was covered by Nouvelle Vague, I think that's how you say it, and they made it a lot more French, in a good way. They changed it to 3/4 and used nylon guitar, the accordion, chimes, and nature sounds. It's not as long as the original, but I think that works in the cover's favor because it repeats itself more as a waltz. These are both great versions of the song, so check them out if you don't got anything against the French. Time for another cover that defiles the original's odd time signature. Take a Look Around by Limp Bizkit. So this one kinda bends the rules because it's technically not a full-on cover, but the main riff is derived from the Mission Impossible theme by Lalo Schifrin. I've never seen any of the Mission Impossible movies, but I'm more than familiar with its theme because 1, it's referenced in everything, and 2, it's a prime example of the signature 5/4. Because 5 isn't clearly divisible, the melody is asymmetrical from the odd amount of beats. Just like with 7/4, a lot of people will divide 5/4 into 2 measures that are easier to count to. In this case, it's a measure of 3 and a measure of 2. Usually this makes a song in 5/4 sound urgent and kinda disorienting, and that works perfectly for an action movie like Mission Impossible. Take a Look Around is from their third album, Chocolate Starfish, but it debuted on the soundtrack to Mission Impossible 2. And I want to make it clear, I don't hate Limp Bizkit, I just think they're really, really annoying. Like, a lot of their songs have genuinely cool instrumentals. There's even parts of this I like too, even though most of the song is in 4/4. It only goes to 5/4 at the end when it builds to a breakdown. But the rest of the song is ruined by Fred Durst. I know it's super low-hanging fruit, and he's got his fans, but his rapping is so damn silly it ruins any tension or emotion this song has. He does some like Chino Moreno whispering shit in the bridge, which is kind of cool, but the verses are like rock and roll McDonald's.
Now all the critics wanna hit it. You said can and we did it. Just because they don't get it, but I'll stay fit.
I know it's rich of me to dog on singers ruining bands when my favorite band is the Chili Peppers, but I promise anytime I talk about Limp Bizkit in the future, I'll compliment them in some way. Cause honestly, I was kinda surprised how many people were defending them last time I brought them up. They're like a solid 4.5 out of 10 for me. I think that's fair. As always, thank you all very much for watching. This is the first time in a while I made a video about theory, so hopefully I didn't get too much wrong. But I wouldn't be surprised if I did, to be honest. When it comes to theory, as long as you're like 75% correct, your opinion's valid. I never said I was David Bennett, okay? Leave me alone. If y'all can think of any covers that change the original's time signature, let me know in the comments. Because honestly, it was kind of hard finding these, and again, most of them were just 3/4 to 4/4. So if y'all can think of any that are like 7/4 to 11/8, that'd be awesome. Shoutouts, of course, to my patrons, and I'll see y'all next time to talk about when I was disappointed by Jeremy Allen White.